just came up. So, all right, today we're going to talk about high output project management, a tribute to our good friend, Mr. Andy Grove. May he rest in peace. So, like I said, I'm Khe Hy. I'm the founder of RadReads. And I didn't save my files, so there's a typo there. But like I always say, the tagline for RadReads is come for the productivity, stay for the existential. Today, I will spare you the existential. We are going to be staying just in the realm of the productivity and the project management. I think productivity is a fantastic gateway into some of life's more tricky and pernicious questions. Dan and I often talk about these when we are ruminating on life. I am, as part of, I've been a power user of Notion for a long time, and I'm a official Notion LA Pro, which used to mean that they gave me pizza and swag to host events. And now it means that we do a bunch of virtual events together. So fun facts about Dan and I. Fact about Dan is one of the reasons I'm actually doing this work is because of Dan. When I was a confused Wall Street person, we would sit down and just like his energy, his creativity, his passion was just super inspiring. I think we're like 10, 15 years apart in age. And I just learned so much about him and so much about this world. And so that's why I'm doing what I do. And fun fact about me, I moved to LA 2 years ago and I have surfed 400 days since I moved here. I'm going right after this. So without any further ado, today's agenda, we're going to build an Asana or a ClickUp lookalike in Notion, but it's going to be much cheaper. We are going to use Notion's unique rollup and relation features, and then I'm going to set the framework for how you can centralize all of your docs, notes, wikis, projects, everything into one place with the goal of reducing friction, centralizing your information and reducing friction. And I'm going to do that by starting with a blank page and building from scratch. So let's do it. I want you to see how easy this is to really take this from nothing, right? And I'm going to show you literally nothing. Well, just this, but this is a blank page, a blank Notion page. And so we are going to kick in and get going. Now, we've got a small enough group. I'm not watching the chat, but Dan is watching the chat. Please barge in, ask questions. Let's make this super interactive and let's get it started. So here we have a blank Notion page. And I will just start off by increasing the width. And so the approach, the challenge that I often see with people who use Notion in the early days is that they treat Notion like a bunch of static links. So think of like a web page where you have a home page and then you link to a bio and then you link to a blog. And it's all just these links that you're manually stitching together. And that it works to manage like a small amount of information, but when you get into teams and collaboration and lots of files, it quickly starts to break down. And you're actually avoiding Notion's most powerful feature, the fact that they have built-in tables or databases. And so the way I teach it, the way I use Notion is that I distill everything down to its most basic elements and create tables of those elements so everything is interlinked. Now, if you're not familiar with Notion, that might feel a little bit confusing, but you'll see that when you think about what we're going to build today, a project management tool, it's actually just a collection of a few different things. So what are those things? The first thing that they are, and I'm going to go a little bit fast. You'll have you'll be able to watch the video on replay, but this is more just so you can get a flavor for how it's going to all work versus like building every little feature in real time. So what is the most fundamental unit inside project management? That would be the task. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with our first primary table. And I'm going to do that by hitting the / command and do an inline table. And so this will be, and so you'll see, you'll know if people take my course because they'll start their tables with KK or JJ. And so this will be tasks. And why is that? That is because Notion search is really slow. And if you're accessing similar data, like these primary tables, you don't have any files that have the word KK in them. And so when you type in KK, it will just pull up your primary tables. It's a very quick way to navigate. YK, I stole it from Superhuman. It's the natural resting point of your index fingers on the keyboard. So you can really, really like blow through it. I know Superorganizers like little things like that. So, all right, so we're gonna start our task table. And then here in our task table, we are going to, I'll just rename this task name. And like any good task manager, the most fundamental unit of a task is whether it's done or not. And so I'll put in, let's put in an emoji. Is this task done? We'll select the field checkbox. And if you're new to Notion, you just see that this is basically a giant spreadsheet, but the columns can be set to a certain type of data. So this is a checkbox, before is a name. I'm changing the columns that they gave me. Let's say due date, and I'll put in a date here, date field. And that is probably, that is all. I mean, we could put in a prioritization, priority. This will be a single select field, and we'll do high, medium, low. That's just to name our field. So let's come up with two projects. So the project will be, Superorganizers RadReads collaboration. And so there's a few tasks that I need to do there. One would be send Dan the Zoom page. And then the follow-up one would be upload the replay, send the templates, okay? And if we wanted, we could put some due dates because you'll see this on your, Saturday newsletter, Sunday digest. So we'll put some due dates in there, okay? So we have a list of tasks. And again, if I hit Command P, I type KK, and then it pulls up my tasks right away. So that's how quickly I can navigate to it. Okay, so now we have tasks. What's the next unit of project management? Projects. So I'm going to create a second table. And again, I'll do the same exact process. So we'll do table inline. I'm just doing it inline so you could see it all in the same page. And here I'll do KK projects. I'll rename my first column project name. And, this will be RadReads X Superorganizers Orgs Collab. So that's project one. And the second project could be like, I don't know, let's get into Dan's footsteps today. Hire new tech writer. That could be a second project. I know that's on his mind these days. And so here we have our list of projects. We could assign any project level field. So we could have like, let's just do like a, desired outcome. That's just a simple text field, and I'm just going to delete this column.
While you're doing this, I have a question.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Go. No, it's not.
Why do these as inline versus as their own separate full page tables?
I'm doing it inline. There's no difference. It's like Rome. It's like the bracket or the hashtag. Yeah. There's functionally no difference. Actually, let me restate that. There's one tiny difference, which is it's like the way they would show up here. They'd look slightly different in here, and actually I don't know the difference there. But it doesn't really matter. I'm doing it this way just as we're talking. It's just easier to have them all in one page, but we can move them around and hide them and things like that.
Got it. And then there's one other question in the chat, which is,
yes.
Can you show how to create the status bar in Notion from Cody McLean?
Can a status bar as to, is that, Cody, like what percentage of the task is complete?
Yeah, exactly. Like I've seen in other Notion templates that would see like a percentage.
Yes, yes,
And it's kind of complicated to create.
yes. I will tell you that I actually don't know how to create them. I just go and rip them off of other people's pages to do them. So there are two people who do them quite effectively. It's William Nutt. He's Notion.vip, and Red Gregory. She's a blogger, a Notion pro as well. So um, basically you're counting the tasks that are complete and then dividing them by the total number of tasks. But if I'm honest, like I couldn't build that on the fly. I'd have to do that. I'd have to go copy someone. Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Okay. So desired outcome is attendees master project management. And again, this is just and hire tech writer, new team, expand team with talent. Okay. So we have a few projects. And again, I'm just going to I just need to hide this box. I'm going to remove the wrap cell. So we have two projects, and then again, just a bunch of different spreadsheets, tables. And then we'll create our last one, which is notes. Now, notes is where people often stumble and start to really just use nested pages. I believe you should use all your notes in one table, and then you cross-reference those tables using different types of relations, which I'm going to show you how to do. And so with the notes, we will then do, this is where it starts to get fun. We can do note type and make that a multi-select. So what are some note types that you might want to have? One that we use all the time is SOP. You might want to have meeting log. You might want to have interview notes. You might want to have files, not like necessarily like Dropbox replacement, but just like files that you often access. And you might put in as an archive. Okay. So these are different types of notes that you can have. And you might be wondering, well, like why did Khe go through the effort to do that right now? And so I want to show you the first really cool thing about Notion, which is these templates. So these are page level templates. So what we're going to say is every time we create a page in this notes table, which by the way, is kind of our file explorer. It's our Google Docs, it's our Google Sheets, it's all of that all in one. Every time I create a note, I want it to look a certain way. So what does that mean? Well, we might want to have a note for we're creating an SOP. We want all our SOPs to look the same. And so we do the SOP. We will not use the bikini as the SOP icon. We'll use the gear. And we will then put in like, well, what would an SOP have? We might put in like vision statement, like why are we doing this? Remember, this is a template. We could then put in tools used, and then you like put placeholder. We then could put in definition, let's say SOP steps, TK. And then we could put in, oops, sorry, definition of done. Okay. And then it could be done. So for in our team, we do send Notion message to task creator. Okay. And so now we've created a template for a page in this table. I want to also show that we can then click in and pre-populate this template. We could also add some nice little metadata that I always create. So like created date, so we could do filter. We could start filtering off of this. Created time and modified date. So we could do search by last modified. You could see that we're starting to build a little bit of a file explorer. I'm a kid of the 90s, so I do make Windows references often. I'll click out and our template is done. So now let's look at what happened. Let's say that I'm going to create a new SOP for a partnership. So look what showed up in my template button. Let me make that a little slower. I click the little arrow here, SOP. It's pre-populated it with the SOP. It pre-populated with the placeholders that I need to fill in. So this could be partnership SOP. And then I would go in and I would fill these things out, and you'd see the created date, the modified date is changing slightly, as I go on. And I put it in, and I'm not going to fill it out, but there you go. So now all my SOPs will look the same. I could do the same thing. I'm not going to, I'll do it a little bit quicker for like meeting notes. Let's do bubble. So this will be our meeting note. I pre-populate the field, meeting log, and we'll put our standard, attendees. Action items. Okay. And the cool thing is when you're working with teams, you can start adding properties. I'm not going to do it now, but like, you can add people, right? Like people who are in the meeting or people that this is assigned to or things like that. So you can add a lot of metadata, again, at this top level. So now if you go in here, we have meeting notes, partnerships, so on. So this is so we've created our architecture, right? Now nothing fits together yet, but I'm about to show you how that all works. But this might be a natural pausing point to field any questions. Ask away, either video or chat. Let me open up the chat. I can't see the chat bubble. Dan, are there any chat questions?
We got another one from Cody. What do you think about Tiago's para system?
I'm gonna pin that for later, but I will. I use it, and I'll pin that for later. It's a little bit trickier with teams.
Cool.
And I will answer my take on Rome as well, but I will answer those in the Q&A once we finish the template. Will this template be shared? Yes, it will be shared, with a caveat that when you share templates that have linked databases, they don't always work well. So I will put that caveat. I will do my best. I think what will be most helpful will be to pair the template with this tutorial to see what's happening, because the relations that we set up will probably break when you duplicate it into your workspace. So you'll need to know how to do it. Do I have a custom icon set? I do have a custom icon set. I spend way too much time and money on this custom icon set. And I'm struggling to find the right brand identity, but that's for a different conversation. So I do. But I would always warn people, be careful. Notion is great for doing $10 an hour work and $10,000 an hour work. It's very, very tempting to do a lot of $10 work in terms of just making things look beautiful. That's a good question. So Michael Morsi, we've been thinking of starting from the bulletproof. So I know of the bulletproof, but I don't know. I've never used it myself. If we have a good understanding of how things work, should we? I think that if you really understand how Notion works, by all means, you should use another template, because all these steps, like a good template would have 10 different types of note fields, and just like creating each one of those, assigning the icons, like that just takes a lot of time, and the visual identity will be really helpful. I would be very careful though, because if you don't understand the architecture, it can spiral out of control very quickly. So, so I would just, that there's a trade-off there. But if you feel like very comfortable in Notion, by all means, if you can kind of, it's a little bit like being a programmer. If you can kind of look at someone's code and be like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing, then by all means, duplicate templates. If you can't figure out what they're doing by looking at it, start from scratch. And thanks, John. I will definitely check out Lemonly. All right. So we will come back. People always want to talk about Rome. So we will come back to that. Let me just fix my screen. So the next thing we're going to do, we haven't used Notion's best feature yet, which is the relations. And so what we're going to do is we're going to link all these tables together. And so the first thing we're going to do is we'll link the tasks to the projects. And to do that, link to projects, we will create our first relation. Okay, so I create the relation, and it basically says which database, which table, which spreadsheet do you want to do this. This is where KK is helpful. See how quickly Notion search, for those of you know, is pretty damn slow. So we could really get around that with this little KK hack. So we create the relation, and boom, we have linked our tasks to our projects. So now you'll see the two projects listed below. Hire a new tech writer, and it's totally dynamic. If I change this to hire a new biz writer, I go in here, hire a new biz writer. And so what we're going to do is, this is part of the collaboration. So I'll just assign that to the projects. I always wish it didn't default to this. So I assign this to the projects. And then, you know, here it would be like contact Paulina at profile for candidates. That's for our other project. And so here I'll go in and I'll link it to hire a new business writer. Okay. So now our tasks are linked. So I don't know why this didn't show up here. That's strange.
Okay, I just want to flag, we have 2 questions.
Okay,
In the chat.
cool. Let me go into the questions. Question. Any issues with linking multiple tables? I'm not sure what you mean, but the answer is no, there shouldn't be tables. And you'll see I'm gonna link projects to notes as well. So Sam, there shouldn't be an issue with linking multiple tables. But if you want to elaborate or jump in with some more with where you've had issues, let us know. One of the challenges we run into with folks to get excited about and do all this good stuff, but that kind of make the overall Notion a lot less effective. For groups that have a mix, just want to do it, not thinking about it, have you found any strategies for setting? Yeah. I mean, I think, Michael, you spot on nailed the biggest challenge of Notion is that, sometimes people just want Starbucks, right? They don't want to use the Chemex and grind their own beans. And in fact, 90% of the population wants Starbucks and 10% wants to grind their own beans. And so I think that so this is what I would recommend in this. I think that there needs to be a small group, or if even one person, that owns the architecture of the workspace. And then there needs to be a series of custom dashboards that they might be like an IC dashboard or a manager dashboard or a KPI dashboard that people can literally just duplicate into their space. And then the team needs to have like basic Notion training. So like they need to be invested, and like any tool, and this is not just Notion, like it doesn't work if 5% of the people don't use it. Like 5% of the people are writing their notes in Google Docs and 95% are writing their notes in Notion, it breaks because everyone has to go check two places. And then eventually the whole thing starts to fray. So I know some companies where they have a very specific architecture where they say, like, you are not allowed to create a Google Doc unless you share it externally. The same way some companies say you cannot send an internal email, you can only send internal Slacks. And so I think that, I have this model, now I'm zooming out a bit, that you have tools, but tools in isolation are prone to shiny new toy syndrome. What you need is a self-awareness, which is like, why are we doing this? How does this serve our bigger goal? And then you need behavior change, right? Superhuman's a great example. You could, I love to use Superhuman because you have to hit Command-Shift, comma to delete a message, which is just blows my mind that like you pay $30 for the right to not use the delete key. But that's the behavior change. It is forcing you to use keyboard shortcuts because you will not get the full benefit without it. The other question on Superhuman is like, well, if you haven't managed the boundaries of communication with your boss, like they email you all weekend, Superhuman's not going to fix that. What you need is to have a conversation with your boss about why he or she emails you on the weekend, if that's possible. So to answer your question, like, I think it requires like an architecture, a vision, and then like a organizational behavior change. I'd love to hear more about, Michael, let me know if that answered your question appropriately. Public websites. Okay, John, I'm going to come back to all the non-project management questions at the end of the conversation, just so that the people who watch this on replay don't poke their eyes out. Okay, so let us get back to. Okay, so we linked these projects and tasks. And I'm just curious why this didn't show up here. Okay. And so now we have a full relationship, but let's keep going, right? So let's say that, Dan interviews, we lost that. You know what? I didn't create the template. Let's say Dan creates a new SOP for interviews. So interview SOP. It's a little bit slow. So you could do like identify sources. You could do job description.
Is your hashtag short code Notion thing?
Oh yeah, it is a Notion. I'm doing for H1s through H3s, they are hashtags. That's a Notion thing, though.
And that's standard. That's not
standard Notion. Yep. Job description and then questions to ask. Okay. So this is our template. You know what? I'm not creating these as the right template. Sorry about that, gang. Let me go back. That's why I'm not doing new template. Okay. So I'm just redoing what I just did. This is the interview SOP, okay? And then I need to delete this message, okay? All right, so Dan is going to interview someone. He goes in, he fires up the interview SOP, those questions. So interview with Sam. It's being a little slow over the Zoom. I probably screwed it up because I typed into it. There we go. Okay, let me let it load. There we go. Okay. Interview with Sam, and then, came via LinkedIn. Okay. So again, the created date, the note type, it's interview notes. And so we're building our file system. Let me just delete these ones. So again, the same thing that we want to do is we want to link these notes to projects. So we'll create a new relationship. So link to project. And then we'll go in and create a relation. Same exact questions thing. So KK projects. Now, we could link this interview with Sam to hire a new business writer. And so now you could see that our notes and projects and tasks are all interconnected through this, pretty simple architecture. And we have templates for different types of notes. We could have templates for different types of tasks. So I could create a new template that's like assigned to Dan. And then I would create the assignee field, person, assignee. And then I wonder if what's your, I don't even know if he's in here. Dan Shipper at Gmail. Is that your?
eShipper at Gmail.
DShipper. So let's see if he comes up. He's not going to come, but let's say Cole is one of my colleagues, so assigned to Cole. So these tasks will always be, and you could see I could start linking them to projects and so on. So I could go in and be like, okay, I need to assign a task to Cole. I hit this button, call Nathan at Super. And it's automatically assigned to Cole. I X out, she gets notified that she has a task waiting for her. And so through this architecture, through these templates, through these columns, through these relationships, we have basically architected a project management system that is quite dynamic, right? And so this task that I just assigned wasn't linked to a project, so we can link it to a project. So we've created the backbone, and now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just hide all this stuff. Because we're not actually going to spend time in these primary tables. So now I wake up and I come to work and I sit down at my desk. What do I want to see? I might want to see a list of tasks that are due soon, right? So let's do that. So now my 3 favorite words in Notion are create link database, because now I can pull in all of this data into all different sorts of views. So I do create link database, and let's say I want to see my tasks. Okay. Here are my tasks. This is a mirror image in my tasks. I see there's a question, so I'll grab it in a second. This is a mirror image of my tasks, and now I want to maybe do a little bit of manipulation to it. So let's start manipulating it with 3 things. We could just like change the way it looks, first of all. And so maybe I don't want to see the assignee. I do want to see the project, and I do want to see if it's done, and I want to see the done field next, right? Okay. And since we're not using the priority field, I just want to hide it. I don't want to see it, okay? So these are a bunch of projects. Now, okay, what else do we do in a to-do list? So then we're going to start doing filters. Well, on a to-do list, I wouldn't want to see a task that's complete, right? So what I do is only show me tasks that are not complete. So then I cross this out. Watch what happens when I X out this empty task. Disappears. Then I might want to say, because this is my dashboard, I only want to see things that are due soon. So I add another filter that says only show me tasks where the due date is within the next week. And so this, to Michael's question, like most 90% of your company won't want to do this. But that's where the kind of the owner of the system can just create these views for everyone, so that everyone, all ICs come in and they see the same, like upcoming task, overdue tasks, whatever, projects, things like that. And so again, you can customize these views, and we can keep adding. The last thing we could do is we could sort it. So we could sort it. We could sort it by due date ascending. So I get my due dates first. I could create a formula that lets me know if it's overdue. And so this is like this is how I want to see tasks every morning. Then I might want to see, let me just add another linked database. I might want to see our file system, right? So again, I'll create another linked database. And here I'll go into KK Notes. And again, so now you start to see all of my notes. Now we could change the view. Let's just say like I like to have my SOPs handy. So I only want to see my SOPs. So I got to use, so like SOP list. And let's actually make that a list. And I hit create. So I'll bring this up here. And you see there's a bunch of empty files, but same process, right? I can just go in and start filtering. And my filter would say, only show me notes that are SOPs. So here are all of my SOPs. And again, I can go in and add another SOP. This one could be healthcare onboarding SOP. And you'll see it's loading, but it will give us our SOP template. It's a little slow resume, but you'll see healthcare, it's tagged as an SOP. Here's our vision statement. I would fill this in, et cetera, et cetera. And now I have my list of files. And again, this is where people usually get tripped up, is that they might create their SOP list and then create a page here, SOP1, go back, create a second page, almost like a static web page, right? For those of you who are familiar with a CMS, it would be like the way many people use Notion is that they treat it like they create a new page for every blog post and link them all together. But if you have a CMS, you just input fields into a database, and then the system pulls out the relevant information and spits out your blog post dynamically. So this is the old way of doing it. You just have loose files hanging around your workspace. And this is the tight way to do it. You have all of your files listed by category. So with that, let me pause and go into the questions. Let's see the chat, sorry. Okay, so are all relationships many to many? Is there any directionality in them? Okay, so yes, they are one to many or many to many. So I guess that would make them many to many. Is there a directionality in them? You can, by default, they're bidirectional. And don't get this confused with bidirectional links. But they go both ways, right? So as soon as I link the project to the task, it created the task, it linked the task to the project automatically. So it doesn't matter where you define them from. What is the benefit of creating a linked database? So think about this, right? Jonathan's question is, what is the benefit of a linked database versus putting everyone using the primary table? What's going to happen? Think about an organization, right? You might have 100 SOPs, and there might be a team that never ever needs SOPs. So why would you want that team to ever even know that these SOPs exist? That other team might only care about DevOps, right? And so all of your pages, DevOps, SOP, interview notes, meeting agenda, they'd all live in the same place. So at an org level, you could always find them, but you would create the linked database so that Sam, and I'm picking on Sam because she's first on my panel, if Sam is in DevOps, she doesn't give a crap about your SOPs. She just wants to see the DevOps information. And so she would create a dashboard, or her team or her pod would create a dashboard that just links to the DevOps pages. But again, it's consistent with the firm-wide architecture. Hopefully that answers your question. Sam, if you're managing a team and want to use Notion, is there a recommended process for creating a 90% viable interface? A viable interface.
Yeah. So here, I'll just it's easier. And entertainingly, I did run a DevOps team. We actually really loved SOPs. So
okay, I know that's about it. I don't know much about DevOps, so but we're on the same wavelength today.
And organization, but so I love all sorts of tools like this personally. I'm thinking of this more of my team, and as I'm rolling it out to a bigger team, the value, unfortunately, of using sort of a bigger, clunkier tool is that a lot of the sort of work has gone into creating a UX that works for the majority of, 90% of those people, and then the 10 or 5 or even 2% of us crazy people who will go through the effort to create each individual thing, then can sort of go off on our own and do our thing. And so I'm just wondering, like, from a Notion perspective, it was sort of started more as a individual user tool, maybe. Is there a good way to start by, creating that system for folks and then letting individuals go off and do their own thing? But how do you actually start that system for the 90% of people who are not going to go in and fiddle?
Yeah, I think that you need, I'm going to be honest, it's hard.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about some of the challenges with Notion for this, but there's two that I've seen that really pull on me. One is lack of recurring tasks. It's really tough to run a team when there's no dedicated recurring tasks. When you have to hack a recurring task, you're kind of pushing on people's breaking points, and it's on their roadmap, but it's really frustrating. That's one. And the second is it's really hard to create task dependencies.
Okay.
So for example, if, in a recruiting, there's create job posting, interview candidates, send job offer. You do not want to see tasks 2 and 3 without having completed task 1. I know Notion pretty damn well, and I think I know how I could hack that together. Like Cody's formula question, I have no desire. That's a waste of my time to do that. But task dependencies are a big part of project management. And if you're seeing tasks 2 and 3, if one person's seeing it, if 3 people are seeing it, if 20 people are seeing it, not only is there cognitive friction, it's just you risk breaking something. So I haven't directly answered your question. I would just point out those are the issues. The bigger to your question, I think that you have the owners of the system, and I don't know if that's the CTO or the founder or whatever, they have to commit to an architecture.
I think that's any tool though. That's just smart.
So I think that's the first, but a lot of people don't do that. Especially with something like Notion. I don't think they fully appreciate, and maybe Mitchell is implying this in his comment, I don't think they fully appreciate the amount of nuance, right? It's not obvious to not create a wiki as a static web page. That's a natural way you would do it because it's the path of least resistance. But that breaks really quickly. So I think you need to have that set up. And then I think you kind of need to have like Notion help desk almost, right? Where, I even had to do this with my virtual assistant because I was like, well, you could take my Notion course, but that's 7 hours of materials. And she's frustrated because she doesn't know how to link a task to a project. And so I need to basically do what I'm doing right now. I need to interview her, find out her use cases. And, if you have a team of 10, maybe they have all 10 have the same use case. And then create it for her and then have her import it. And I need to be sure that she's using it as well. That's even the harder part.
I'll let you answer this question afterwards because I know somebody already asked about Para, but are you seeing, as you sort of go through, and I want to keep watching you do stuff, but are you seeing particular systems like something like Para or using this with Agile that work particularly well with the tool?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so maybe I'll zoom out for a second. I think that, that basically wraps the tutorial part, where what I want you to take away from this is architect your primary tables. So that's like a design question. Then link them appropriately, right? For example, if you were a VC, one of your primary tables might be deals, right? Not project. It might replace project, right? If you're in real estate, there's all these different parts of the process that can stand as their individual like unit. And so, this is like database 101, I think, because I'm not like a trained database person. But basically, if you ever have to type in the same information twice, you need to think about using a database, right? Because that's where your redundancy is. That's where you could have linked data, and that's where things could break, right? If you have to type in Sam is at BlackRock twice, then there's a chance that I could spell it BlackRock with one space and BlackRock with no space, and that's to the system, that's two different companies instead of a link where you just grab it once. So architect your system by thinking about what these primary tables are, link them together, and then use linked databases or use templates to standardize the information, right? So that all your SOPs look the same, so that all your meeting notes look the same. And again, these are just templates. Like I could delete the text. It's just showing text a certain way, right? It's not structured data, but it's good. It's nice to know that all your interview notes look the same. So use templates, this little fella, to make everything look consistent. Then once you're done, stitch it, create dashboards based on how the user wants to see the data presented to them. Right? And to Sam's point, you might create one dashboard for your entire team. Or if you have some Notion nerds, just kind of let them run free and wild. So that's how I would do that. And then I'll answer the second part of Sam's question. Have I seen an overarching framework that works? It's tough. I think. So for first confession, I don't know much about. I know basically zero about Agile. By the way, if anyone like has a link for an Agile 101 book or post, I would love to learn about it, because I literally know nothing about Agile. I'm like from the world of finance. So I don't know about Agile. Para works pretty well. I think what works better, and Asana just added this, right? They added it's almost more like, because you can build the hierarchy, Para is still quite horizontal, right? Project, areas, resources. But what Asana just added, and I haven't played with it yet, is they have tasks is the base unit, which rolls into projects, which is the second layer, which new feature, $30 a month per user, damn, is goals. So if you thought about building that in Notion, that would actually be 3 tables, right? Projects, and let's put notes to the side, because that's really more the wiki part of your business. But you would have tasks, projects like we built, and then we'd create a third table called goals. And then you could have KPIs, you could have Cody's project formula trackers, all of that. So that's an architecture that could work. I know August Bradley does this in his he is like PPV. He's incredible. And if you're a systems geek, his is at the individual level, but I think it like rolls up to like 5 levels. It's like tasks, projects, outcomes, and like, why am I on this earth is like, layer 4, values, things like that. So that's I think people are still trying to play with it. All right. So we have slated 5 minutes, but I've got, I adore Dan, so I've got all the time in the world. The only thing separating me, holding me back from the ocean, is a bunch of Notion nerds. So I've got all the time in the world. I can, there were a few non-project management related questions. I mean, I'll defer to Dan. How do you want to do like kind of the free-for-all Q&A?
I mean, it's up to you. You run it however you want.
Okay, cool. So since people are going to sign off probably at 8, some people probably have hard stops. I would like to invite you all to. So I'm launching my the 5th cohort of my Notion course, Supercharge Your Productivity with Notion, which is really it's like imagine this for 6 straight weeks. And so there's the architecture, there's all of the feature design, there's the design component, but there really is it's the whole enchilada, right? We're not just going to build a CRM. We're going to talk about the principles of effective relationship building. And then we're going to talk about the habits and the behavior change that are required for that to work. So we're going to look at that with habits. We're going to look at that with relationships. We're going to look at that with money. We're going to look at that with goal setting. So there's going to be a you're swimming in the existential, but washing yourself with the Notion feature set. So it's a great that's just a weird analogy. Apologies, but that is the gist. So Dan will be sharing all the links. It goes live tomorrow morning. You can, if you're an eager beaver, you can go to radreads.teachable.com and you'll see it tomorrow. So with that, and then Dan will be sharing these links and special super organizer bonuses that will extend the early bird period for you, so saving you $300 for 2 additional days. So you'll hear all of that from Dan. So with that, I will then, okay, let me do this. Let me ask if there's any project management. So Abhinadan, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Can I make a project plan with Notion and link it to a project management process in an agile way? Unfortunately, I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know agile. So Sam might actually have a better take on this question than I.
They might be asking about like card view. So
okay.
Here you have like a to-do.
Yes. Yes. Got it. So we just scratched the surface on Notion features, but if I go back to my properties on this little table that I did, and I add priority, let me just throw in some priorities, high, low. You have a whole slew of options of things. So I could turn this into a Trello board right away.
That's basically agile.
Okay. So you see it's already linked by high, medium, low, same filters. If I wanted to see what's on tap for a calendar, it would pull up a calendar view. So send the templates, upload the replays, and then the Zoom page. All of that is, that's the beauty of having this all in databases, is you can start to slice and dice and cut and position things based on very, 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 very customized use cases. All right, I'm back. So there was a question, there was a Rome question and a Para question. Okay. So let me just grab this because Hugo just asked it. Oh, but nice. I like them. He called me rad. I'm using Notion for just myself so far with a team. What kind of permission? Yes. Permissioning in Notion. It's a very, very good question. And so when you enter, when you create a group plan, so you put your team on Notion, you then can create different, basically, permissioning groups. So you could have like executive group, you could have, my team. Obviously, you always have your private workspace. And so once you get into a group plan and put all your team members on the group plan, then you get a whole list of additional permission settings that are tweakable at the page level. Hopefully that answers your question. Awesome. So the two questions that I recall, one was on what's your view on Para, and the other one was what's your view on Rome. I believe, Dan, was there a third that I was meant to answer?
I think those are the
two ones. So on Para, so I teach Para in my course. I think it is just such a simple distillation of kind of how our lives work. I think that it's, if I had to, so the answer is yes, I use it. Tiago is a good friend. He's actually like a mentor of mine in kind of online teaching world. So I use it, I teach it. I think that August Bradley would say this, I feel this, but I haven't fully adapted it yet, is that it's kind of like this goal things. I think it should be a little bit more hierarchical. I think that Notion gives you the ability to make it more hierarchical, where you could do tasks to projects to outcomes to values, right? So I think it would be like a little bit more like a pyramid than a series of horizontal blocks together. So that's something, but that's tough, right? Again, it's a system design question. It's not about having the tools to do it. So that's my answer on Para. I forgot who asked the question, but if you'd like me to elaborate on that even more, please let me know. Now Rome, all roads lead to Rome. I think Rome is an incredible tool. I think that it's definitely like a power user nerd tool. I could imagine, showing it to, 70% of rad readers and be like, you want to use this tool where it's kind of command line based and you don't really ever need to use your mouse. And there's these weird brackets and stuff. I think they'd be like, no thanks. But I think Rome is incredible because Notion is an incredible tool, and I think Notion is here to stay. I think this is my personal view. I think Notion starts to eat away at like part of the G Suite functionality. It starts to eat away at part of the Airtable functionality. It starts to eat away a little bit at Slack. Just kind of like really like once it works, it really works. Like with our team of 3, we barely use Slack because we have a rule. It's like you only communicate with a Notion. And if it's not related to a project, then you go into Slack. And so there's not that much Slack traffic, which is like a godsend. So I think Notion is here to stay, but Rome is it reinvents. Here's where I was going. Notion is still just an extension of the old tools that we've been using. They've kind of morphed them together, but and they've innovated on the user experience and the design, but it's still kind of Microsoft Office, just like very nicely packaged that works in collaboration with one another. And again, it's not to take away from anything that they've done. I think Rome is just a complete reimagination of the entire paradigm. And I think that is just freaking cool, right? Like there's Notion, Rome doesn't really have a concept of files, right? You're kind of just appending and linking information, kind of rebuilding a file in real time. It doesn't really have folders. It has a graph. And so all those things are super cool. But this is the way, and this is the way I see it. Like, I would never want to keep a list of SOPs in Rome. I would never want to do a checklist a launch checklist in Rome. Like there are parts of my life where I really want structure. Project management, I want structure. Then there are parts of my life I see, Cody, where I'm a gardener, or Anne Laura calls it the magical junkyard. There are parts of my life where little shards of information, kind of magically dance together, right? And to me as a writer, that's like my creative brain. And so I have a Rome window open. The Rome people probably wouldn't like me saying this, but I kind of think of Rome as like a paper notebook where, like, there's so much great information in my notebooks, but if I ever lost a notebook, like, I wouldn't really be that upset. And so I just kind of like dribbling notes in throughout the day, doing light tagging. I'm not really good at Rome, but I just dribble notes out throughout the day, and then link it together, and then just kind of like weird stuff, weird connections find me. It's a very powerful writer's tool. I also I like to use it for anything that has unique identifiers. So, like, I kind of use it as a very lightweight CRM where I just like take little notes about, like, Dan might tell me, his puppy's name, and I'll just write it in Rome. Again, like, goes in my notebook. If I lost it, not the end of the world. But good to have it, right? Like, I know Dan loves puppies. So that's kind of how I use Rome. I will say at a very personal level, like, as I go through my world of productivity tools, one thing that is so important to me, and again, this is me specifically, is speed. And which is actually quite fundamentally at odds with Notion, because I think Notion is always going to be slow, like, relative to other tools. It's kind of designed in a way to be slow just because it can do so much, right? And to me, very low speed, very low friction really kind of taps into how my brain works. So I think, like, in a very steady state, I kind of use, like, my notebook is Rome, and like my structured thinking and structured life and processes and my business. I wouldn't want to put my business in Rome, is in Notion. There's a little mini piece there that's slowly fading away. I'm a big GTD person. And so I've used OmniFocus for, I think, 12 years, 10 years. I love OmniFocus. Again, speed. It's so fast. Recurring tasks, all that. Like, you could set up a recurring task like in like 3 seconds. It's like beautiful. It would take like 30 seconds in Notion. And no, it would take infinity because Notion doesn't have recurring tasks. But OmniFocus, I could definitely, OmniFocus at the end of the day is structured data. And so as you start to pull away, I could see Notion is already pulling away at my OmniFocus usage, to the point that I've been using OmniFocus really as a quick capture inbox for tasks. And at the end of the day, when I used to organize them within OmniFocus, I now just like transpose them into Notion. So it's really starting. The only thing that's left basically for me in OmniFocus is recurring tasks. And they're mostly like paying bills and stuff. So that's kind of my thoughts. I'm sure there's more Rome questions. Sebastian asks about Coda. Yes, Coda is on my list of things to try. I have heard incredible things about Coda. And I really think they have, all these tools are copying each other, Notion heavily inspired by Dropbox Paper and Trello, and so I have heard that Coda is really powerful. It's a much heavier lift from like the amount of things you can do is more powerful, again, from what I've heard. So I would imagine if you find Notion difficult, you'll probably find Coda one step further, which means, though, it's one step more powerful, or many steps more powerful. Oh, public Notion pages. And it's also, it has access to an API. So the API, I have no inside information. Notion has hired a bunch of roles that are related to, I think they hired former Stripe API person, Christina Cordova. they're doing it. They've publicly stated they're doing it. At the end of last year, they said that improving search and the API were their two biggest priorities. We're 9 months into the year and we don't know. So the API is going to be a big deal. I still use Airtable when I need an API instead of Coda. So I don't have anything to say there other than I really can't wait for it. It will pull me away from Airtable and probably really will prevent me from going all into Coda, because I don't think I have that strong of a use case for it. Again, nothing against Coda, more against my own use cases. John asked examples of public Notion pages for memos, resources. Yeah, I think this is a wild card for Notion, where it's because they index so heavily on design and UX. There are so many times where I'd rather create a web page, if I want to create a quick little web page, I'd rather do it in Notion than in WordPress. It's so much faster. It looks better. There's enough customization out there. I don't do, Notion SEO optimization, but you can tweak some of those. You can have it indexed by Google. So I think it's a direction they could go in. I don't know if my hunch, again, no inside information, is that they're more concerned with attacking the enterprise. And if enterprise is their play, then I think that, kind of chipping away at Webflow is probably not as high on their roadmap. Again, personal opinion. But I think it's huge. I mean, you have the built, like I said, what we built is a CMS, right? Or it's akin to a CMS. We could have swapped a few variables here and built a CMS in the same amount of time, like an effective one. So I think that I think it's great. I'll drop in. I create a job board site. So, this job board site takes me 2 minutes to put together every week, and 2,000 people read it each week. It's just it's amazing, and it looks so good. I tried to create it on WordPress and just was so ugly. It just didn't work. And I would have had to hire a developer to build it on WordPress.
Are there page by page analytics?
No, they're not. Some people mask them with Bitly, things like that, but not native. No.
Okay.
There's not even. You can't even change the any metadata. You can't add any iframes, things like that. So it's still quite raw, but like John says, the potential is huge, right? You could see people having their resume. I mean, the potential is huge. Whew. This is fun. Thank you all. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. This was wonderful. I learned a lot. I picked up the KK thing. I love that.
Oh, yeah. You should actually, JJ is probably better because it's the natural resting place of your index finger if you're righty. I didn't do JJ because that would have pulled up all of my personal pages. But it's awesome.
I love it.
It's really good. Another little fun hack is if you do kind of these primary central dashboard type pages, get the URL, set it as the home page to your web browser. So every time you fire up a web browser, you have your personal dashboard there. That's another little shortcut. And if you want to go crazy, I just Quokkas will throw off. Yeah. If you want to go crazy, I just discovered an app called Coherence, which basically takes any web app and turns it into an a Mac OS app, which basically just mirroring the Chrome browser, but you can most importantly, you can command tab into it. You could fire off Alfred workflows as if they were apps. I think it's the best $10 I ever spent.
All right. I love that. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for staying overtime. I really appreciate it. Yeah, everybody, make sure you check out Khe's course. The cart opens tonight. Khe, what's the URL again?
Yep, I'm going to put it in right now, radreads.teachable.com.
Cool.
It opens tonight. And just so you know, there's 2 tiers. There's 6 weeks. It's incredible. There were 100 students that took it last time. There have been over 250 people have taken it. There's a thriving private Slack group. We have 7 facilitators, course managers, alumni mentors. We have a dedicated teaching assistant. So there's over 40 hours of live instruction, plus another self-serve 10 hours of Notion tutorials, templates, and so on. A great group. 55% of it is non-US, so it's very international. And yeah, so that's the course. So the 6-week course is $9.99, and then the 4-week course is $6.99. But so everyone gets the option to buy the premium course at $6.99 for 48 hours starting midnight tonight, and then Super Organizers will extend that window for another 2 days.
Yep. So check it out, and thanks everybody for joining, and yeah, we'll keep doing these. I think this went really well. So
awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Dan. All of you have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.